to make sure that you can hear me. It is 1 o'clock, 9th of November, and just waiting for. There we go, in I come. One of my worst nightmares is to, well, not one of my worst, but there we go. One of my worst ones is to do like a whole hour and a half show, and then realize that for some reason there was no sound coming through. So I've also tried to make sure that the camera isn't mirrored. Guess that didn't work because I'm watching a preview on YouTube and it's still mirrored. So that's my thing to work on for next week. Hope everybody, I'm just playing around with this wonderful cube. What could possibly go wrong? Who knows? So how are you all? Hope everybody's well. I just thought I'd jump on, talk a little bit about movies, talk a little bit about TV, talk about life in general. If anybody's got any topics in the chat, do chuck them in. I could use them. I haven't really watched that many films this month so far, and I know we're only on the 9th of November, but I think I exhausted a lot of my movie watching in October by watching 31 horror movies. I'm not going to go through all the films I watched in October, but it was quite a lot. 31 to be exact. And so it's quite nice just taking a bit of a break from watching films and just catching up on some TV, trying to catch up on some video gaming, catching up on bits and pieces. So this is going to be an episode where I do talk about a whole range of stuff: TV, movies, video gaming, books, YouTube, life in general. How are we in November already? That is just insane. It is quite insane that we're actually in the second last month of 2025. This year has gone pretty quick. It's been another year of health for me, but I'm not going to start off a podcast episode by chatting about all that crap. I'll save all that till later on. I'm going to chat about some movies. So, as much as I enjoyed doing Shocktober, hey, my friend Midnight Social is in the chat. Hi, Midnight. Hope you are doing well. Yeah, it was nice watching lots of horror films, but the horror films are great and they're entertaining and we love them, but they're not exactly great for your mood, are they? So I do miss watching some comedies, but I haven't seen a decent comedy for ages. Seems to be a lack of comedy. For some reason, every time I podcast, I get an itchy nose. I don't know why. Very strange. Never like that when I'm not podcasting. And so, finishing off from Shocktober, I'm like, I just needed a bit of a break from watching films. The backlog of TV episodes was pretty crazy. And there's some shows that we're doing rewatches of that have taken up a bit of time. So I'm going to start on TV. I will start on the TV. It's a bit quiet, is it? Okay, I'm not quite sure. See, I'm using an iPad, Midnight. And for some reason on an iPad, I'll sit a bit closer. For some reason on an iPad, you can't adjust your microphone volume. So, you know, if I was using my PC, for example, I could up the volume and then you would hear me a bit better. But on an iPad, there is no way to up a microphone. So maybe it was a case of I was just sitting a bit too far back. Maybe I just need to project my voice a little bit better. And then hopefully you can hear me a little bit better on that one. I'm still playing around with the ideal way to do a podcast. I still miss the days of Skype, where it was so easy. I could edit, I could tweak, I could boost volume and all that sort of stuff. But I'll get there. So yeah, it was nice to take a break from movies. I did watch one film, I've seen one film in November, and that is the Fantastic Four. So the new Fantastic Four movie which came out. So full disclosure, I like the Marvel stuff. I'm not a diehard Marvel fan. I'm not like I've not seen everything. There's quite a lot that I haven't seen. I haven't seen Captain Marvel, for example, but I have seen the Marvels. I've seen all the Avengers stuff. I saw most of them up until Black Panther, and I think after Black Panther, I started to drop out a little bit. not any fault of Black Panthers, but it's just, I think once the Marvel TV shows popped up, and then I had to watch it. I mean, you don't have to. Always annoys me when people, I have to see this. You don't have to watch anything. They're movies, for God's sake. Watch what you watch. Enjoy what you enjoy. But once the Marvel TV shows popped up, I sort of didn't have enough time to watch everything and catch up, and then I started missing things, and so I got way behind with a lot of the Marvel stuff. I've still dipped in now and again. I haven't seen the second Doctor Strange film. For some reason, I nearly said the third one then, so that's how far behind I am. I haven't seen the Thingy of Madness, whatever it's called. So there's a few that I've missed, but I've still jumped in. I've seen Thunderbolts, for example. I watched that. That was good. Um, Deadpool v Wolverine. Of course, I had to watch that because the whole planet was watching that thing. And so the Fantastic Four, I had a few hours spare a couple of days ago, and I noticed it had dropped onto Disney Plus. So I sat down and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to give it a go, and I liked it. It's fine. I think visually it looks great. I was very confused by what the hell Earth 833 is, or was it 838, one of the two. But I kind of worked out, oh yes, this is one of these bloody multiverse variant things. I hate the multiverse. I don't like them. But I enjoyed it. I like it. I think I mean, it's not a high benchmark, but it's probably the best of the Fantastic Four movies that have been done. Certainly out of the four that I've seen, the two Tim Story ones and the Josh Trank one, which I didn't mind the Josh Trank one. But I enjoyed this new Fantastic Four. I think the casting's fine. I think it's very easy to follow. You don't necessarily have to have seen all the other Marvel stuff, which I do quite like. That's one of my biggest issues with the Marvel stuff is that there used to be so many things you would miss if you hadn't watched this show or you hadn't seen this movie and so on. And there's too many movies out there for me to devote all my time to watching Marvel stuff. But I do like the Marvel stuff. I also like the DC stuff. You know, I refuse to pick a team. But Fantastic Four is good. It's fun. It's silly. It's popcorny. Uh, it's fun to see Galactus in an actual character because I'm so used to seeing him in the Lego video games. I do love the Lego video games. So I guess my thumbs up. Is Fantastic Four going to make my top 10 of the year? Probably not. Because I've seen quite a lot of good films this year, and the year has still got like a month or so to go. But it's not in there. This is like the scary time, scary in quotes, because not really scary. This sort of scary time of the year for podcasters and people who run websites, because you're starting to mentally prepare in your mind the best films I've seen this year. Some people do the worst films of the year. I know Stu Miller does. You start to prepare your end of the year shows, and they're always fun to do, but they do involve a lot of work. Work. I use quotes again. Watching movies is not work unless unless you feel that it is. But I was looking, and there's still quite a few films of this year that I haven't seen, and most of them are like family films. So I don't avoid family films, but I just haven't seen that many of them. I haven't seen Lilo and Stitch, for example. I do have Disney Plus for a couple of months, so on a special offer on that one. So I do need to check that one out. I haven't seen Minecraft. I haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon. I haven't seen The Bad Guys 2 because I hadn't seen The Bad Guys 1. And then I haven't seen Snow White. I didn't avoid Snow White. I wasn't part of that whole backlash, let's burn this film to the ground stupidness that went on. It was on my list to watch for a while, and then lots of other films came out, TV shows came out, and I just didn't manage to get around to watching Snow White. It's not really made for me, but the whole backlash is probably one of the saddest things I've seen this year with fandom. There's a lot of really sad things about movie fandom online, and I think definitely Snow White backlash is definitely up there. There's a few films that I really do want to watch that came out this year, but I haven't managed to watch yet. One Battle After Another, the Vigilante Leonardo DiCaprio movie. I do want to watch that. Tron Ares, I really do want to watch that one. The Accountant 2, I really want to watch that. I just haven't yet. because I really like The Accountant 1. The Roses, which is a sort of remake of War of the Roses, which was a remake of something else. That looks funny, so maybe when I do need to sort of dig up a comedy, then I can check out The Roses. And then finally, just go back into horror movies. I have heard good things about Companion, so I will probably watch Companion at some point. So there's a whole bunch of movies um, that I do need to get round to watching, or I would like to get round to watching. I need to stop using that phrase "have to." I don't have to do anything. Um, this week I received a little package through the post from a wonderful PR company, and I have got a whole bunch of screeners. Now, for those of you who have seen these sort of live broadcasts before, or if you're listening on the audio podcast, I'm holding up these bunch of screeners. I love the fact that physical discs are still a thing when it comes to screeners and movies in general. So I get very excited when I do receive some through the post. They are far and few between. There's only a couple of PR companies now that sort of still send those discs out. Most of them will just do online screeners where they send you a Vimeo link or a link to some other platform. The problem with these online screeners is you don't get the special features. You are limited to where you can watch them. I like to watch most of my screeners in my screening room, which is like a second living room, which is the focus of it is the surround sound and the big TV, and I've got all the lighting all set up and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about internet buffering. You don't have to worry about logging in through a browser. You can actually watch a 4K screener disc in 4K, which makes me very happy. So, what did I get? Well, the first screener disc, and I haven't watched any of these yet because they all. I'm just bringing up the release list of these things so I can at least tell you when they are out. So this is a 24th of November release. Obviously, you can't read it because I've not worked out how to do this stupid mirroring thing yet. But this is The Apartment. So this is the Billy Wilder film that is from the 60s, 1960, starring Jack Lemmon. I love this movie. I absolutely adore this movie. And this is a 4K screener disc as well. Not only that, which I have seen the film a few times, but it's also got extras on it. So this film will have the following extras. There's an audio commentary with the film's producer, or with a film producer and historian Bruce Block. So that'll be fascinating. There's a whole bunch of video essays. There's some interviews with people connected with it, and lots of featurettes and stuff like that. But The Apartment is awesome. It's a really good movie. If you're a fan of Jack Lemmon, and is there anybody out there that doesn't like Jack Lemmon? Jack Lemmon's awesome. Then that is out on the 24th of November. Now, this one I have got is a triple disc set. Now, I'd never heard of this. Is it a film or a documentary? I think it's actually. I think it's a blend. I think it's a blend of documentary and narrative film, and it's called Wild Style, and it comes out on the 1st of December, and it's all about 1980s New York, and it's all the rise of hip hop. Now, I am certainly not an expert on hip hop, or I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm anti hip hop. I'm definitely not. I don't know anything about it. Haven't got a clue. I've probably seen some films. You know, for me, I'd probably say 8 Mile was a hip hop movie, but people would go, no, that's actually rap. So I know nothing about hip hop. But this looks interesting, and I'm more excited because it's all set in 1980s New York, and I'm fascinated by 1980s New York. So with this, it's a 3-disc set. So on disc 1, which is Blu-ray, so we get that one. We get the film. There is also 2 commentaries on it by people connected with the film, and a couple of music videos. Disc 2 has all more extras on it, so there's a lot more interviews, panel discussions, and all sorts on that one. And then the 3rd one is the CD soundtrack, which is probably not the sort of music I generally listen to, but I'm going to give it a listen. I'm going to give it a spin, and think it's important as a film fan and as somebody who does a podcast and who writes reviews and stuff to sort of expand your watch base. You know, I love home invasion movies and psychological thrillers and sci-fi epics, but that's not all I watch. Sometimes I will jump into a musical or an anime thing or French new wave movie or something just to go, I'm just going to watch something different. Wild Style, this 3 disc set, definitely falls into that category. So that comes out on the 1st of December. Now, all of these I'm going to try and watch next week as well. There is a reason why I'll be trying to watch them all next week, but I'll get into that later on. The next one I've got is out, let's have a look, the 1st of December, and this is a film that I've heard about, City on Fire. So it's a Hong Kong action movie, and apparently it was one of the inspirations for Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. Stars Chow Yun-fat, who I'm a big fan of. I love The Killer, I love Hard Boiled, all the John Woo stuff I think is fantastic. But City on Fire is one of those films I've never seen, never ever watched it, but I've heard of it over the years. And so when I saw it on the list of films available to try and get my hands on, I'm like, yes, I will happily sit down and tick that off my list because it's a film I have never seen. That comes out 1st of December. I'm hoping, and these are all Arrow titles, by the way, I'm really hoping that Arrow get the licenses for a lot of the John Woo films that seem to be coming out. I think Shout Factory, I think it's Shout Factory in America, are releasing like Hard Boiled and Bullet to the Head, Bullet in the Head, and The Killer. These films have just begged for restorations and special editions over the years. I'm very excited that the US are getting these films coming out, but I really, really want to get them myself here in the UK. I don't have a multi-region Blu-ray player. I do have a multi-region DVD player, but not a Blu-ray one. So fingers crossed the John Woo films do actually make it over here to the UK. The second last film which I got is a Wes Craven movie, which I have seen before. I'm just trying to find out where it in fact is, and more to the point, when it comes out. So it's Wes Craven's Deadly Friend, which comes out the 17th of November. So this is the one I need to watch pretty quick. Deadly Friend is a lesser known Wes Craven movie. So obviously you're all familiar with Last House on the Left and Hills of Eyes, Scream, and Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven has got an amazing filmography, and so some of his films obviously are going to be slightly lesser known. And Deadly Friend, unfortunately, is one of those. It's a film I remember renting in the late 80s from the video store. And to be honest, all I can remember is it is a guy whose girlfriend dies. He brings her back. She's the deadly friend. No spoiler there. She's on the cover. And then there was a scene where she kills somebody with a basketball. Straight at the head. Knocks the head off with a basketball. That's pretty much all I can remember because it's been nearly 40 years since I've seen this film. So I'm very, very excited about revisiting Deadly Friend. There's a whole bunch of extras on that. There are commentaries by film critics. Unfortunately, I don't think Wes Craven did record a commentary for Deadly Friend. And then there's some archival interviews with the cast and crew. I always love watching those. I'm always very curious to see what they will say years after. I mean, archival doesn't necessarily mean it was 87. A lot of archival ones could be within the past 5, 10, 15 years. So I will be checking those out at some point. The final screener I got, which was from a different PR company, sort of less impressively put together because it looks like it's just a regular burned blank Blu-ray, but it's still a film, still got all the extras on it. And it comes out at the end of November, and it is the 30th anniversary of a British film called Boston Kickout, which I remember seeing years and years ago. It's the first appearance of John Sim from Life of Mars, and I think it's the first appearance of Andrew Lincoln, who would then go on to be very, very famous in The Walking Dead, and who would also sit down and I would get to ask him a question one day while he was at San Diego Comic Con. So, me and Andrew Lincoln are therefore the best of friends, seeing as I got to ask him a question once and he answered it. So therefore, we send each other Christmas cards all the time. We don't, but it would be nice. So Boston Kick Out. So that's my latest screener batch that I've got. I'm going to be trying to get through a lot of those this week. Tuesday this week, so 2 days from now, when this is being recorded, I'm going into a hospital. Oh joy! Where they're going to put a little needle through a pipe that's coming out of me in a minute. They're going to deflate a balloon which is inside of me, yank that thing out, put another one inside, reinflate that back up, and then that's me for the next 12 weeks with a balloon full of silicon inside my bladder. The things we do to stay alive, it's amazing, isn't it? So I'm potentially going to feel a bit crap for the remainder of the week. So I'm preparing to just sort of laze in bed for a couple of days and just catch up on some screeners. I will sit there with a sheet of paper, make some notes, and then later on, next weekend or whatever, I will start to type up the reviews for the reviews on FromPageToScreen.com. I will probably also do video reviews for some of those titles as well, because that is something I'm branching out into for the YouTube channel, is to do some video reviews of even from screener discs, because you can still do them. Obviously, you just can't show off the packaging like some of the other things. I've also been trying to tidy up my backdrop a little bit because it was a bit of a mess. It's still a work in progress. It will get there. There is a big white gap there, which I think probably some posters need to get stuck on there. But I've been just trying to tidy some of the crap off that and make it look a bit more respectable. I've brought some of my box sets out. I'm trying to make this room a little bit less like a crap heap and a bit more like a podcasting studio. Obviously, those of you who are listening on audio, you won't see anything, so don't you worry your little head about it. I was trying to come up with my movie plan for next year. Now, by movie plan, it's as 1 year sort of comes to an end, and then another one is headed around the corner. I always like to think, what am I going to do next year? What's going to be my theme for the films that I watch? Previous ones, I've done things like I'm going to watch a film a day for an entire year. I managed to do that. It was horrendous, I think, because real life gets in the way and you're like, I can't watch a film today. Oh crap, I'm going to watch 2 tomorrow. And you've got to try and not let the whole damn thing snowball and get out of control. So that was quite a tough one to do, but I did it. Never again. Then there's things like we want to watch the Disney films. We're still working our way through the Disney classics this afternoon. Once I finish this podcast, going downstairs, and Annette and I will be watching Aladdin, the animated one, which I've seen. Annette's never watched it, so it'll be fun watching her watching the film. So we're working our way through that one. But I was thinking, what am I going to do next year? What's 2026 going to be? So I was racking my brains. And then I was thinking, I'm trying to bring a little spreadsheet up that I've got here somewhere. There we go. And Annette and I were chatting about movies that she'd never seen that I had, and films that I'd never seen that she had. And so I was like, well, do you know what a good idea would be for 2026? Is if at least once a week we watch a film that we'd never seen before, but kind of always wanted to. So not necessarily watching all the new stuff, but just films that we'd never seen, over the years for whatever reason. And it's like, let's get that watched. So, for example, this year, for the very first time in my life, I watched the entirety of Stanley Kubrick's 2001, which is a film that I tried to watch at least, oh God, how many times? I don't know how many times, like 3 or 4 times. So I'm just trying to play around with the sound here, and I'm hoping that I don't cut the stream off. The iPad was in its little rubber case, so I'm just going to pull this thing out of the case for a second, because you never know, it might be the thing it might be hiding. Right, so I don't know if that's better or not, but there we go. So that's what the Jutta was there. I was trying to remove the iPad from the case. Yeah, 2001, I've tried it a few times, and I couldn't gel with that film. So this year, I have the film as part of a big Warner Brothers 4K set. I'm like, do you know what, I'm going to sit myself down, and I'm going to force myself to watch 2001, A Space Odyssey. I appreciate it more than I like it. I think for a film that was made in the late 60s, it looks amazing. I just don't understand what the hell's going on in 2001. But I was so happy when I got to the end of the film, when I'm like, do you know what, I've now seen 2001. I probably will watch it again at some point, but I knew that I'd never have to watch this film again if I never wanted to. But I felt quite proud that I'd actually seen it. The year before, I'd watched for the first time films like White Christmas, Sound of Music, things like that. So it's quite nice to go, I'm going to tick that off my list, get a nice little achievement, and a trophy pops up after that. So I'm like, do you know what, next year, let's do a list of films that we have never seen before. And I'm just bringing up my spreadsheet. So I've already started building 3 columns on a spreadsheet. So there are films that I've never seen before. There are films that Annette has never seen before. And there are films that we both haven't seen. So I'm going to start. I think that's what my thing is next year. So Annette's only got 2 films on hers at the minute. That will increase as we watch things and hear things mentioned on podcasts. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I've never seen that. The first film that Annette has never seen. She never watched it. She's purposely avoided this one because I think in her head the film is nastier than it in fact is. And that is Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange. I've seen it. I think it's a weird film. It looks weird. It's got weird dialogue in it. It's not as nasty as people think it is in their head. And I've said to Annette, I said, I fully expect that when you watch Clockwork Orange, you'll get to the end of it and you'll be like, well, that was crap. I don't think it's a crap film. I just don't think it's as good as a lot of people seem to think it is. I think if you saw it at the time, then maybe you love it. So I'm just checking some sound here. Saw it at the time, then maybe you love it. There we go. This sounds a little bit better now, I think. Just checking some sound. There we go. I was just checking the audio there. So yeah, Clockwork Orange we're going to watch. And the other film that she has never seen but has always wanted to watch, we just never got around to it, is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, the Kate Winslet and Jim Carrey movie. I remember seeing that one. I remember it being really weird, but I remember quite liking it. So those are 2 films that we're going to watch in 2026. The films that are on my list that I've never seen, Akira Kurosawa's Ran, which I think was Kurosawa's final film. I don't know why I've put that on my list. I just remember it coming out. I remember George Lucas and Coppola and Scott, all these big filmmakers rallying around it to help it get made and give it some support and stuff, because obviously Kurosawa is a big name, big influence on a lot of people and a lot of films. And for some reason I've just never seen it. So I've put that on my list. Another one is the Bette Davis film, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which was a film we did try and track down for Shocktober, but we weren't successful tracking down the original one. We did see a remake on Amazon Prime, but we didn't see the original one. So that's on my list. I've never seen it, and Annette loves it. And then, very different to the previous 2 on my list, Jack Black's School of Rock. I've never seen School of Rock. I've seen clips. Of it, but I've never seen it all. So I'm going to sit and watch that one. So that's my 3. The films that neither of us have seen. So we're going to watch those obviously together. The Green Knight with Dev Patel, which is a more recent one, as is The Substance, starring Demi Moore. Her, which is the one where Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with his Cell phone. Guess that'll be interesting to watch now, looking at some people falling in love with AI chatbots, so that's quite weird. The Master, which is the Paul Thomas Anderson film, again starring Joaquin Phoenix. And then finally, Parasite, which I have never ever seen, and neither has Annette. So that's the start of the list that we're going to pull together. Obviously, we're going to watch a lot of stuff that we do anyway, so things we have seen, things we just want to watch, new films that come out. But that's going to be our project for 2026, is watching films that we've just never ever seen before. Because I think that's one of the big pain in the butts about streaming platforms nowadays, is there is just so much content to watch. And TV has, I don't want to use the phrase has never been better, but TV is pretty impressive. The amount of TV shows that I need to get around to watching, or I want to get around to watching, things like Landman. I am keeping up with some of the current shows, but I want to go back and watch from the beginning Fear the Walking Dead, because I sort of got halfway through that and then just got sidetracked, and I do need to get back to that, but I can't remember half of it, so I might as well start from the beginning. Too much stuff and not enough time. Um, so I need to just catch up on everything. And there's so many films out there that have been. It's weird, the longevity of a movie nowadays. They come out, they get talked about for 2 weeks, and then they're gone. Whereas back in my day, when I was a big old movie fan, and would live in a cinema theatre, I wish, films would be in cinemas for months, sometimes years. I mean, you go back to see how long something like Ghostbusters or Raiders of the Lost Ark or E.T. or Star Wars or Superman and all these big ones would be in cinemas. And it'd be ages. You'd go watch this thing like 5, 6 times over the summer. Now, if you don't watch it in its first 2 weeks and it's not like a behemoth blockbuster, it's gone, disappeared. I reckon if I looked up my cinema listings now for Tron Ares, probably not even on. And that came out, what, 2, 3 weeks ago? So I've missed that. So I'll just have to catch up on Blu-ray with that one. But it's a shame. I think it's a shame that cinemas don't keep movies in there longer. There's probably a whole bunch of reasons why. Obviously, they want to make as much money as possible, but I think people's viewing habits has changed drastically. Everybody wants that achievement unlocked for, I've binge watched this series in a week. Yay, not even a week. I've watched the entire season 5 of Stranger Things in a day. Yay, let me talk about it on my vlog. We sort of, a lot of podcasters and people who have YouTube channels feel the need that they need to complete the race rather than enjoy the scenery. And, you know, it's become more about the destination less than the journey. And I'm one of those that still prefers the journey. But yeah, I'm also prone to the destination type mentality as well, which is driving me mental. Give you an example. I remember as a kid, I had a ZX Spectrum, one of those little rubber keyed computers. Great. In the house that I lived in, we also had an Atari 2600, one of them wooden things. And as a kid, I would spend days playing video games, there were always movie adaptations, so I played a lot of those. I remember playing the movie adaptation of Cobra. Yeah, there was a Cobra video game for days and days and days, and we're talking hours and hours and hours at a time. And I would love it. But now, I do have a PS5, I do have an Xbox X. I have a few games, but not many games. And yet, whenever I'm playing a game, I'm thinking, what else have I got to do? Have I got a film to review? Have I got a podcast to prep? Has anybody emailed me anything interesting? What's going on in social media? My focus on, I'm just going to sit down all afternoon and play video games, that just seems to have been shot in the head. I don't know when that disappeared. And it's the same when I'm watching a new film. Doesn't really apply to old films because old films and nostalgia still gets me. But when I'm watching a new film, my brain is always like, what else have I got to do? How long is this film? What have I seen that person in before? Blah blah blah. It's my laser focus that I used to have is not as good um, as I wish it was, because there's all these different things. There's all these plates spinning. The spinning plates is a thing that the Annette and I were talking about this week and last week, where some people can have too many plates spinning, and by that I mean, and I'll use me for an example. Podcast, okay, podcast one plate. Reviews for the screener discs that I've just sort of mentioned a few minutes ago, another plate. I want to play some video games, another plate. I've got some social media stuff to do for somebody, another plate. And so if you've got all these different things going on, it can drive you a bit loopy sometimes. So it would be nice to sort of just go, right, I'm just going to focus on that, which I did do a little bit of this week. So I have been playing a little bit of video games, but just not as much, because every time I sit down to play some video games, I'm thinking, oh, I've got to do this other thing that I've forgotten. And so this week I have been clearing my to-do list quite a bit. I was helping somebody write a press release article for themselves. Can't go into what it is or who it is because it's not been released yet. But I was helping them with that. I've got that up to date now. I had a film review to do this morning for a movie called Backlash. Interesting film. I didn't love the film. So Backlash, and it's really, I don't like writing reviews when I'm not like, it was okay, it could have been better. Not really that sort of reviewer. I'm certainly not the sort of reviewer like, this film sucks. I'm more than, hey, look, all the positive things that came out of this film. So I watched Backlash, and Backlash has a really interesting premise. So it's about a bunch of young adults who play this game, this video game. It's a bit like a Call of Duty type thing, but clearly the filmmakers don't have the money to license a Call of Duty, the name to use in their film. So they've created their own one. I think it's called Strike Force or something like that. And so it's the same premise as Call of Duty. And then a bunch of these young adults get sort of sucked into the actual video game themselves. So they end up handcuffed into this watchtower. The snipers running around. So the premise of the film is really, really good. It's just because of the lack of budget of the film, I suspect, it doesn't quite gel. So you've got scenes where these snipers are running around a public park, and it looks just like people are running around wearing camouflage in a public park. So it was tricky to suspend the disbelief that these people were actually in a video game type world, and it was noticeable enough and jarring enough that it took you right out of the film every time that was happening. So, if this film would have had a bigger budget or better, maybe I don't necessarily mean better resources, but if you got a bigger budget, you can hire more resources, then it would have been a better movie. So it kind of pains me when I have to give a film like, yeah, it's all right, but it could have been better. Certainly better than anything I've never finished. I'm still trying to work on my Mimi documentary, which is also another plate that's spinning out there in my to-do list. So Backlash was interesting. It wasn't amazing, but I know why it wasn't amazing. But I've been sitting on this review for about 2 to 3 weeks because it took me a while to watch the film because it was an online screener link. I've already mentioned that I'm not a massive fan of those. And I had a lot of other things going on in the meantime, which sort of took me away from that. But I have finished that this morning, and I've got the review, and it is now on my website, and so that's done. That's one less spinning plate that I've got. I've still got a few plates spinning, but not as many. I mentioned that on Tuesday I'm going to be in hospital for a few hours where they're going to faff around with me. Potentially I'm going to be a bit laid up for the rest of the week, which is when I can catch up on these screeners and catch up on any podcasts I've got to listen to. not got to listen to, I choose to listen to. So I'm getting there. I'm just slowly trying to work my way through all the stuff that I want to get done, and getting done what I can get done. I've done a few unboxing videos on the channel this week. I did an Aliens official 1986 magazine, which I found at a junkyard sale for £1. Pretty impressive. So that video's on the channel. There's also a short video for an issue of Cinefantastique from May 1990, which I bought at the same junkyard sale for £1. I did a James Bond box set, which is, unfortunately it's over there, but I did a video for that. It cost me £15, but I had a voucher to use in this store for £13, so it actually cost me £2. And it's a huge, physically massive box set that's got 20 James Bond movies in it, 40 discs, so it weighs about half a ton. So I managed to get that video done, and I have got, I think, about another 3-4 unboxing videos to do over the next however long, as and when I can do them, because they're all back catalogue stuff anyway. So I've got that. Video game wise, I'd mentioned I played a little bit of video games. So I'd signed up for 3 months for PlayStation Plus. I used to have PlayStation Plus pretty much constantly, but it's like £60 a year. And then I hit a time when I didn't really play too many video games because I was busy watching all these films that I have to watch. And so I sort of let my PS Plus lapse. And because I'm not a massive online gamer, I do miss the days when I used to do that. I used to play a lot of Call of Duty, a lot of Project Gotham Racing on the Xbox 360, and a lot of a game called Tribes on the PC way back in the day. So I did used to really enjoy online gaming, but I just don't do as much of it now as I used to. But I think maybe about a month and a half ago, I signed up. I had a spare 20 quid for once, and I signed up for PS Plus again. And so I got a lot of my games back. And with PS Plus, if you're on the basic one, you get, I think it's 2 or 3 games each month they give you. The part that sucks is once your PS Plus runs out, you lose access to all these games that you've kind of got for free previously. So that's a bit crap, to be fair. Kind of wish they would let you keep them, or at least play them. And this month, one of them dropped, and it was a game that Stu Miller, I think, had recommended to me a while back, and it's called Stray. Now, in Stray, you play a stray cat. I am loving that game. It's very, very easy to get into, very easy to control, very easy to sort of go, okay, I know where I'm at, I know what I've got to do. And you become really, really protective really fast of your main character. In games like Call of Duty, you will just run into a building, hopefully you'll try and shoot somebody, but odds are somebody's going to shoot you. You don't really care. You're like, I'll do it again in a minute. But with Stray, you're kind of protective over this cat. You don't want it to fall off a ledge or fall into an extractor fan or anything like that. And you are controlling this little stray kitten who has become separated from his friends. I'm not quite sure what the premise of it is. I'm guessing the whole premise of the game is to reunite with your buddies, because there is a sort of a cutscene near the beginning of Stray where the stray falls down and then ends up isolated in this desolate, scary, grimy looking city. And then you're wandering around just trying to get through to each level. But I'm loving it. I think Stray is a really, really good game. So I'm going to try and finish that before my PS Plus lapses again in mid-December. Fingers crossed, if I end up with another 20 quid, I might renew it for another 3 months. Ideally, I should really save up the money and then pay for an entire year. But I haven't done it yet. It's far easier sometimes to find £19 every 3 months than it is to find 60 quid in one go and pay for it. But I'm good. I'm enjoying it for now. I don't play enough video games to instantly go, I need to sign up for a year. I go through phases. Sometimes I don't play video games for months, and then other times that's all I want to do. So I'm playing Stray, I'm still playing Gran Turismo 7. I'm enjoying that, although I haven't played that for a couple of weeks, so when I go back into that, I'll probably suck. And and have to start from scratch again. So there is that. So I'm playing video games. Television wise, we are up to date with Tulsa King. I say up to date, there'll be a new episode today. So I need to catch up with that later on. Welcome to Derry. We are watching. There's been 2 episodes of that. Very, very good Stephen King based show. Not a remake of it, like somebody said on Facebook the other day. It's not a remake of it. It is based on things that happened before it, but also brings a lot of other Stephen King stuff in, like Shawshank Redemption and The Shining, stuff like that. And I'm guessing maybe Tommyknockers or The Mist or something like that. But there's a lot of little Easter eggs that are in this show. It's very, very good. I'm enjoying Welcome to Derry. There'll be a new episode of that on here in the UK tomorrow, I believe, or like 2 a.m. I ain't staying up till 2 a.m. to watch it. So there is that. Health update thing. I got a letter through from the hospital yesterday saying, well, it was a copy of a referral letter. So it's from my specialist to another specialist / surgeon, who has given the surgeon like 18 weeks from the 3rd of November to respond to the specialist's request that I go and have reconstructive surgery on a part that he mailed. A male does not want faffing around with a surgeon's blade. So another bunch of weeks that I will be waiting, but 'tis what it is. Reading wise, I'm still reading the autobiography by film producer Don Steele, which I'm enjoying. I'm not doing too much reading. It's a bathroom book, so whenever I'm in the bathroom, I just sit down and read a paragraph or 2. It's interesting. It's a good book. I do want to read more, and I might try and do some reading this week. I have the Al Pacino Sonny Boy book next to my bed, so I may try and do that instead of watching some films. It's kind of weird when you look at the amount of films that you've watched in a year or a month. That is a lot of hours. And what could you do if you didn't spend those hours just staring at the TV screen? You could probably learn how to play the violin or something, couldn't you? So we do spend a lot of time watching movies. I spend a lot of time watching movies, but other people spend more time than me watching movies. I did install another 4 films into my favourite film list ever collection. And they are. Now, the favourite film list of my collection, for anybody who doesn't know, is my list of my favourite films. So not necessarily the best films ever made, but they are my favourite films ever. And it started off as a top 100, but then has sort of progressed up and is currently around 241, I think. So I'm going to cap it at 250. So I think if I do find other films, then things will have to get kicked out of this 250 list. But I'm doing okay so far. I've got 9 slots available. I installed a couple of James Bond films into the list. GoldenEye from 1995 and from 1979 Moonraker, which is my second favourite Roger Moore Bond movie, following View to a Kill, which is already in my Bond list. So I now have 4 James Bond movies in my favourite 250 list. There is Moonraker, there is GoldenEye, there is View to a Kill, and there is License to Kill. So they're my favourite ones. I was pondering things like For Your Eyes Only and The Spy Who Loved Me, but I need to rewatch those and just decide. It's tempting as it is to put every single Bond movie in my favourite 250 film list. I don't know if that's doing a disservice to the other movies in my list. It's like I'm going to put all 24 Bond movies in there. It's a little bit of a big percentage, but if it turns out that they are my favourite films, then I guess they've all got to go in there. The other films I put in there that weren't Bond were Ridley Scott's Hannibal from 2001, which I think is great. I do prefer Hannibal to Silence of the Lambs. I do love Lambs, but I think Hannibal is better shot. I think it's got a better soundtrack, and it's just all around creepier than Silence of the Lambs. And then Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, has gone into my favourite films because I do like The Phantom Menace. I think it's great. I enjoyed it when it came out. Wasn't a massive fan of Jar Jar Binks, but he wasn't enough to ruin the movie for me. So I've put The Phantom Menace in there. I then decided what I wanted to do was rewatch Attack of the Clones to see if, in fact, all the prequels would go in. It took me about 5 minutes to realise that Attack of the Clones is not going to be in my favourite 250 films ever. Um, I can't gel with that film. I don't know what. I think it's because of the way it looks. It just looks too digitally. And I know it was shot digitally, but just something off for me about the way that film looks. I'm just not a huge fan of it. And probably Revenge of the Sith, I guess, will fall into that. But out of all the Star Wars movies, I'm not a huge fan of Attack of the Clones. I can't get into it. And the only one of the sequel trilogy that I have in my top 250 is The Force Awakens, which I do love The Force Awakens. I'm not a hater of The Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker, but those films are just not up there where they will drop into my favourite 250 films of all time. So those were the new entrants into my favourite. It's an interesting thing to put together your list of films that you love. It's also a really interesting thing to have the physical media collection of them because every time you walk past it, and I've opted to put them in the year they were released order. So I'd put, and they're on a big CD shelf, so they're sort of divided, kind of like the shelves behind me are where the sections. And some people got really agitated and unnerved and freaked out because I'd separated Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 on the first shelf because obviously they came out in different years and there were other films I'd seen that had come out between those. And people were not happy. It was messing with their head. Why have you separated Godfather 1 and 2? It's like, well, because one came out in 1972 and the other one came out in 74. And I've got like The Exorcist, which came out in 73. So that's going to go between, oh no, you should put them together. They were getting generally unsettled by that. But when you have them in an order where you can see what year they came out, you kind of see a lot of your life. When you get to like the 80s and the 90s, you're like, oh, I remember that time. I worked there. I did this and I did that. So I definitely prefer to do it that way rather than just bunch them all together or put them all in alphabetical order and such like. So I'm looking forward to getting to the 250 mark. I'm just not quite there yet. I'm not quite sure what's missing. There's a couple of films that I'm trying to track down, but I refuse to pay silly money for, like Communion, the Christopher Walken, Whitley Strieber movie, which I did used to have on DVD. For some reason, I don't have it anymore. I'm not paying like £9 or £10 for a second-hand copy of that. I will wait and I will see one at a junkyard sale or something and I'll get it. That's half the fun, is hunting around for these movies. So I'll be busy with that. And that's pretty much it. That's kind of what life is at the minute. It's a bit of a come down from Shocktober. So I've been taking a bit of a breather, not watching as many movies. I've been catching up on a few podcasts. So the Dead Air podcast where Wes and Lydia talk about horror movies. I think they dropped an episode this week where they're talking about Terrifier 2, which is a franchise I've not seen, but I'll still give the episode a listen. And then I'll decide whether I do in fact want to watch Terrifier 2. So I'm just sort of catching up on stuff. I think a lot of the past week or so is preparing for the hospital thing on Tuesday to get that out of the way. So I've got a few things lined up. There was a trailer that dropped for a new film it's got a weird release date, but then it's not a weird release date. Guy Fawkes' Blood and Fire from Shogun Films is coming out. The teaser dropped on the 5th of November, which was Bonfire Night here in the UK. And the film was said to be 2026. So I'm like, it's probably going to be November 2026, isn't it? With it being a Guy Fawkes movie. But apparently this is coming out in March. And initially I'm like, March? What the hell? That's a weird time to release a Guy Fawkes movie. But because it's just based on a Guy Fawkes thing, it's not, it's not a film about fireworks. So it kind of makes sense that it can just come out whenever. So I changed my mind on that. I was no longer thinking that's a weird time to bring out a Guy Fawkes movie. Just bring it out whenever. So that's scheduled for March. I enjoyed the teaser trailer. It's about 50, 58, 59 seconds. Tells me enough. Doesn't tell me too much. Looks like a bit of a supernatural murder mystery, serial killery, monster type thing. Looks fun. Interesting cast. I was on set for some of that, so I'll be watching that through different eyes. I do have a lot of behind the scenes footage that I shot on the day that I went to hang around on set. So that is another plate that I've got spinning. So at some point before whenever, I'll need to edit, or don't need to, but I would like to edit some of that together into a shortened version. I shot about 4.5 hours worth of behind the scenes footage. Nobody wants to watch a 4.5 hour cut of that. Well, maybe you do. I'd watch it. So I've got that. Stranger Things, we're doing a full rewatch on that at the minute. We've just started season 3. I think we've watched 2 episodes of season 3. We are on course to be able to be all caught up by the time season 5, or the first batch of episodes of season 5, drop at the end of November. And then another batch drops around Christmas, and then the finale is New Year's Eve. So in a few weeks, in 2 months, Stranger Things will be finished. I like Stranger Things. I don't think it's like, oh my god, this is the best TV show ever. I think it's fine. It's entertaining, and it is better to watch it as a binge, I think, because there's been some pretty sizable gaps between seasons, and quite often I'd go into a new season when I saw them when they were released, going, I can't even remember the last season. So it is quite interesting watching it again through this point of view, watching them all so close together. We are approaching the end of season 2 of Only Murders in the Building, which is first watch for me. I'm enjoying it. I think it's fun. I like Steve Martin. I like Gomez and Short. So that's a fun show. Tulsa King I'd mentioned at the beginning that we're watching week to week. I need to get back on board with The Mayor of Kingstown, which has started to drop a new season. That is another show that's been way too long since the previous season, so I'm really hoping they do a bit of a recap at the beginning to remind me what the hell was going on that one. I need to catch up on Lioness season 2. Can't remember season 1. Remember watching it. Remember liking it. Can't remember anything about it. It's been way too long. So that's the downside with some of these shows, is you're talking like 2-3 years between seasons, and because of the amount of stuff that we're watching in between these shows, we just forget what the hell's going on. So there's that, and I think that's pretty much it. There is a new sponsor for the podcast. For those who listen to the audio podcast, you will hear the new advert at the beginning. I've still kept Chris's Enerix advert in there because Chris is awesome, and you should all be listening to his music. But also Annette's Shopify page is in there. So Annette, she's got her own TikTok channel and her own YouTube channel where she opens like these little, like mini toys and stuff, where you get them in like mystery bags and blind bags, I think they call them. So she opens like loads of these, and then she started selling some of the duplicates, because apparently there is a market for these duplicates. So she has opened a Shopify page. The link for that will be in the show notes for this video, and also the show notes for the audio podcast. But that we sort of made a new audio bumper for the podcast last week, or the week before actually, for that. So new sponsor for the show. So thank you, Annette, for that. And I think that's about it. I think an hour is probably long enough for me to have just waffled. Thank you to anybody who's been in the chat, Midnight Social. I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. Hope you did manage to start hearing my voice. Turn your speakers up. Turn your speakers up. Might be headphones. Might be me. Probably is me. So thank you to everybody who's been dipping in and dipping out of this episode. I do appreciate it. I'm still constantly pushing forward to try and get the magic 4,000 hours. I'm up to 3,600 80 something, I think, at the minute. 1 minute it goes up, next minute it goes down. Tis what it is. And I think that is probably about it. Shout out to Neil Johnson, who's out there traveling the world doing his stuff. There was exciting Time War news that he shared with me yesterday. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't know if it's news to share, but good times. Hopefully next week Stu Miller will be on this podcast with me, and hopefully within the next week or so, John Fowkes will return. I'm going to email John later on today or tomorrow and say, how's things? How's your podcasting? And so we will be doing a show. It'll be on a Thursday night when John and I do ours, but it'll go on this YouTube channel and the audio feeds, so you will all catch up with it. Anyway, I just wanted to just keep this habit going of me doing a solo episode. So I hope you all are enjoying November. I hope you had a wonderful October. And for those of you who are watching this live or watching this today on the YouTube, I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. So take care, and thanks for sparing some time to listen to me waffle about anything and everything.